Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Friday Vibe Show right here on Optimus Fantasy. Coming to you every Friday, late afternoon to early evening throughout the NFL season. I am your temporary host for this evening, filling in for Nate Palvote, Evan Sather. With me tonight, as always, is the always wonderful at DFS and everything else in fantasy football, Keith Flemming. How are you, my man?
I am doing great. That's far too kind, what you just said there. Appreciate that. Big fan of your work, Evan. I'm looking forward to talking some ball with you. I know that you and Nate do the waiver wire show each week, which you need to check that out if you're not currently. And yeah, man, I can't believe it's already week 8. Like, where is the season going?
Week 8, yeah, we're almost halfway done with this season. I would say that my vibes are feeling rather low this week throughout the NFL, Keith, with just so many injuries and so many trade requests, too, between Logan Wilson requested a trade not too long ago with the Bengals, and then Jacoby Myers we knew wanted out from the Raiders for a little while, but between those two, Keith, I mean, Logan plays defense, which, I don't know if you're building that many DFS lineups or any fantasy lineups with IDP in it, but Jacoby Myers definitely would be better off on another team at this point, wouldn't you think?
We'll take him in Atlanta. I'll tell you that. Darnell Mooney, I don't know what's happened. Obviously, he's been banged up, missed some time, but he has not looked like the wide receiver he did last year when he was a real pleasant surprise, especially for Kevin. Trade him for a half-eaten sandwich. Hey, I've got a half-eaten sandwich for the Falcons. I'll be happy to give up for Jacoby Myers. He's better than some of the options we got. We obviously let Ray McLeod go. And there's other teams that are looking for receiver help, looking at you, Seattle. Like, I know that you're thriving, just throwing it to JSN 50 times a game. But I think them having another, passing option would only unlock Sam Darnold even more, who's playing great. So, and I mean, let's be honest. What is Vegas at this point? Like, until our Lord and fantasy savior Brock Bowers is healthy and running around out there, the Raiders offense is going to be bad.
I was just so glad my Bears just barely squeaked past that Raiders team, as Max Crosby was really hurting us in that game too. We have a much better offensive line in Chicago, but that didn't matter to Max Crosby. He was just taking Braxton Jones and saying, see you later, and then getting to Caleb as much as he could. But you're right, that Raiders team, what even are they at this point? They brought in an older coach in Pete Carroll, who I don't even know if his best days are still in front of him, and they're trying to make the most out of what they have with this team, despite Tom Brady's conflict of interest not having much effect on this team. But you bring up a good point, though, about Jacoby Myers. They definitely could use him. Darnell Mooney, I've never really been a big fan of in Chicago. I appreciate him trying to be our wide receiver one like 3-4 years ago, but it was not working out. I was actually at the game 3 years ago when he was operating as our wide receiver one against the Commanders. That was the game where he was trying to catch that game-winning touchdown, and he just didn't get his body in the end zone. And it looked like such a bad effort problem, but, when Matt Eberflus is your coach, yeah,
all bets are off.
All bets are off. Yeah, you're blowing it in the fourth quarter with Matt Eberflus.
It's from a place of love that we can discuss this, because again, one of the few franchises that understands the Bears pain, and at least y'all have titles, is the Atlanta Falcons. So, we were reminded Sunday night, riding high, right? 2 fantastic wins. I was in the building Monday night. It was freaking electric when we beat Buffalo, and then just the most Atlanta thing ever to lay an egg on a national stage. And I think I read our playoff chances went from 70% with a win to 20% with a loss. So, yeah, Falcon's going to Falcon, man.
At least you guys have been to the Super Bowl at least once in the last 10 years. We're coming up on 20 years since my Bears last appeared in a Super Bowl.
I don't know if you want to go to a Super Bowl and what happened to us, but we were there, which is nice. And I mess with Cowboys fans about that all the time, that it's like, I think we've been to 4 times the NFC titles since their last Super Bowl appearance, and to twice the Super Bowls that they have, for a fan base that still does a lot of chirping. Sorry, Casey, I love you, but
I think it's interesting that a lot of people say that about Cowboy fans. Maybe you just know more of them than I do, because the things that people say about Cowboys fans, like always believing their team is Super Bowl caliber, I see that as Packers fans. I mean, that's what I see up here up north. I mean, that's probably gonna get some hateful comments pretty soon about me saying that, but it's different up north. We just don't see enough Cowboy fans that talk that way up here. If anything, they're just more brutally honest about how painful it is over the last 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, we have so many transplants in Atlanta. Like, that's what I try to explain to people with, they're like, how do y'all let so many people, come in and take over your stadium? I'm like, they live here. They freaking live here. They've moved here from other places because people want to live in Atlanta. And so, yeah, if you're a fan of another team and your team is coming to your city where you live, of course you're going to go to the game, even if the tickets are more expensive. Like, why wouldn't you? So that's why, like, when we play the Steelers, the Bills, et cetera, they always have a big group. But there's 2 Bills bars that I know in Atlanta and 3 Cowboys bars that, like, on Sunday game days, it's literally you walk in, you think you're in Dallas or, Buffalo or something.
Yeah, there are a lot of fan bases that travel well. I want to ask you more about Atlanta pretty soon here, but I want to get to this comment first. Alf sucks at mock drafts. Welcome back, buddy. Glad to see you with us.
I like his name.
14-team league. I'm 3-4. Most points for and most points against, which, yeah, that's always a rough time to go.
Yep.
I've been there too myself. Team is DJ. I'm guessing DJ Moore, Derrick Henry, Cam Scattaboo, Rashi Rice, Chris Olave, Jake Ferguson, with Oronde Gadsden, Michael Pittman, and Ken Walker III available for the flex. Am I winning the league? Daniel
Jones. Hello, that's an upgrade. Who would have thought we were saying that too at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, sorry about that, Alf.
This team is, like, I think, primed to be very good because obviously if you drafted Rashee Rice like I did in a lot of places, got mocked how high I was on him, just to let people know how it is. He ran 19 routes Sunday. He saw 10 targets. He is now tied 11th among wide receiver with targets inside the 10-yard line. He's ran 19 routes, and, like, that's already in the Chiefs passed the most over expectation. So that's a home run. We've seen Olave is a PPR cheat code. Ferguson, obviously, and Gadsden, like, that's a really dangerous combination. Michael Pittman's wide receiver 19. And then the big thing is the guy that you probably picked first, who's been letting you down, Derrick Henry. I promise you, when Lamar Jackson gets back, like, I expect Henry, no offense, earmuffs here, to run wild on Chicago this week and have a lot of running room rest of the season as long as Lamar is healthy. We saw a little bit of that in his last game versus the Rams. The team scored 3 points, and he had over 100 yards and had 17 points in fantasy. So I love this squad, especially when you look at Indy the most, 3.5 points per drive this year. That is the most this century, like more than the 07 Pats, the 18 Chiefs. Like, it's for real. As much as I've kind of scoffed and been like, I don't know about this Colts team and Daniel Jones, like, all the metrics say this is for real. And teams that have been at this point where you're first in points per drive this part of the season typically finish in the top 5 at the end of the year, at worst like 9th or 10th. So I think, again, you got that combo of Jones and Pittman to run in when it's good matchups. And I love your receivers, love your backs, and obviously your tight ends. You could have the top 2 tight ends the rest of the season.
Definitely. And he traded A.J. Brown a couple of days ago after that big week. And he's out for this coming weekend. He's not playing. So
kind of came out of
kudos
nowhere, right?
to you, my man.
Did you see that he was, like, really questionable? Because it was weird. Like, I thought he practiced it at a limited capacity, and then they just obviously came out today and said he's not playing. And what was a great matchup versus the Giants, who run man all the time. His numbers versus man are outrageous. He's averaging over 4 yards per route run this season, 40% first read target share. And now all that, I think, goes to Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith.
I have been saying lightly so far. I haven't posted my new rankings graphics on my Blue Sky account yet, but I'm getting ready to fire up Devontae Smith in every lineup I can get because he's going to the moon against that weak Giants secondary. No offense, Carly, but that's,
maybe no Brian Burns too, which means they're not going to be able to get, the pass rush that they normally are able to.
Yeah, I didn't even know Brian Burns was banged up either. If they do not have him out there, that's going to be rough for that Giants defense, which was already vulnerable in the first place. Now, if the Eagles can figure out how to play football properly with Nick Sirianni as their coach, maybe they can actually get their revenge against that double. I think they lost by 2 scores to the Giants, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and I mean the real scary thing for the Eagles, in my opinion, is just this run game. Saquon Barkley last year averaged 5.8 yards per carry. Only Zach Charbonnet of qualifying running backs right now is averaging less yards per carry. The bigger concern is what did he do on a consistent basis, which made their offense explosive, was he had all these breakaway runs. He led the NFL with 25 breakaway runs. It was like 7% of his carries. He had a 20-yard rush or more in, I think it was 12 of his 21 games last year. His farthest rush this season is 18 yards, which is like impossible to believe. And I don't know if they can get that going, but I completely agree with you on Devontae Smith. His receiving yard total last week, the most of any wide receiver this season. His 48% target share was the third highest target share of any wide receiver this season. And now AJ Brown's out of the mix. So I'm with you. Like, if that game is competitive or they get down again, he could see, unreal volume, like 10, 15 targets.
Yeah, and what's adding it to be worse for Saquon Barkley this year is that his offense is not doing him many favors with efficiency either. He's been, over the last 5 games, he's been averaging 3.4 yards per carry on the ground. You would think somebody like him is either getting old and just not as good anymore, like an Alvin Kamara, or he's just fighting through injury, but we haven't read anything like that. Barkley, I mean, despite the fact that he hasn't looked the same as last year, still looks dang good in this offense. So I think this is just more or less just teams catching up with the way Sirianni plays football, where the offensive and defensive staff he's got around him and the talent that he's got, he's just been getting away with just a lot of questionable play calls and even clock management. I remember just even against the Giants, I was just like, what are you even doing out here, Nick Sirianni? You're coaching a Super Bowl team and you don't even know how to call a timeout in time. Like, what is this guy even doing?
I mean, the issue for Philly is Kellen Moore. They're not using motion anymore. Like last year, I believe they used it the second most in the league. That has plummeted down to like 27th. And the other big issue is yards before contact. Like last year, Saquon Barkley, no surprise, led the NFL in yards before contact. This year, that number has came way down. So like, it's a combination of bad play calling. Obviously, your quarterback's not lighting the world on fire throwing the ball, so defenses are obviously creeping up on top of that. And then again, he's not getting the giant holes that he did last year. But I mean, this is a huge game for Philly because they lose to the Giants. Like every team in the NFC East is then alive for that division, which is insane to say, with Dallas already having lost Lamb. Jaden Daniels has missed several games. Obviously, the Giants start and that Broncos debacle last week. Like, but if the Giants win, seriously, all 4 teams are in it, with the rest of the season to go.
You know, it's funny. You were just mentioning Jalen Hurts, too. He had his best QBR quarterback rating against the Minnesota Vikings, which is already a beat-up defense that's not playing well for Brian Flores. And
plays a lot of man defense, too. Like, he threw a couple of dimes down the field.
That was what helped him out a lot, too, because 326 yards on only 23 passing attempts. That is insanely efficient. It's like, who knew that all you had to do was throw the ball to your elite wide receivers and let them do the rest?
I mean, it's what's so infuriating about Philadelphia in general is they have so much talent that I just don't ever remember a team looking so sloppy all the time. And I mean, it was this way last year, if you really think about it. Again, Barkley was the difference last year. It was the same deal, but because he was having all these huge runs, I think it was a carry of 39 yards or further in 9 games. I mean, that's explosive, like touchdowns in most of those. And when you take away those huge 6-point swings, it's been a lot tougher sledding for them. They have a really difficult schedule. And again, this is a must win for them because the Giants, obviously, again, coming off that just heartbreaking loss last week to Denver, gave up 33 points in the fourth quarter. It's tough. As a Falcons fan, again, coming from a place of love, I know how it feels. And they're banged up, to your point. Again, the defense is just shredded. So Philly at home, I expect them to take care of business. That should be, again, great news for Devontae Smith. Great news for Jalen Hurts, who I think he scored 21 points in the first matchup. And I don't think he completed a pass in the second half, if I remember correctly. So obviously, I think all systems go for Philly players this week.
100%. Yeah, I can't see why they would have a rougher time against an NFC East rival, but we've seen stranger things in football. So if the Giants bring it again to the Eagles, whew, that is not going to look good for Sirianni. But before we keep going down that rabbit hole, Bob Hope 123 asks, starting Pitts or Fannin? I think Fannin is the easy start this week, despite the cake matchup that the Atlanta Falcons have against the Dolphins
We
this
don't
coming
have
weekend.
any cake matchups. Just I know you're new to the Falcons fandom, but there is no such thing as a cake matchup. Trust me, I've learned that lesson the hard way numerous times. But I'm with you. Like I like the way we've been using Kyle Pitts as of late, but whether Njoku plays or not, the great thing about Fannin is that you can use him on the outside. You can use him in the slot. They use him at tight end. They put him in the backfield. Like he's all over the field and somebody that just gets consistent targets. And I also think Cleveland's going to be playing from behind. As good as their defense is against the run, the way Drake May's been, feasting, that's another defense plays a lot of man-to-man. Stephon Diggs and Booty both are much better versus man than they are versus zone. So I think Cleveland's going to be in another one of those heavy pass volume games, which like, who was that against? Minnesota where they threw it Pittsburgh where they threw it 52 times.
Right on. So I actually have one question for you, Keith, about this particular answer. So Michael Penix is currently questionable with his knee injury. Maybe you know more than I do whether or not he's going to play through it, but if Kirk Cousins starts instead of Penix, does that change your mind about comparing Pitts to Fannin?
Not really, just because Pitts was, and again, we don't know how much of that was system, how much of it was, Cousins, but it's the same OC. And Pitts has been used so much more this year with Penix, and he's talked about his relationship with Penix and how they have this connection. I think the big benefactor for a Cousins starts would be Drake London, who is just targeted. I mean, I know it seems insane to say that with some of the targets he gets with Penix out there, but I mean, Cousins would just pepper him with targets as well. I am concerned, though, Penix may not go because there's just some buzz, let's put it that way, from some of the people, including I asked a buddy that works for Fox 5 Atlanta, that there is some real concern. They may sit him because, as you said, it's a cake matchup. They don't want to, basically, again, this is a guy with a ton of injuries too, which is the one concern I had about him coming into the NFL. He can spin it. There's no doubt about that. But he's had like 4 knee surgeries.
Yeah, I felt that when you said that there are no such thing as cake matchups for the Falcons, because that's just the way NFL football works. What looks like a great matchup on paper sometimes goes the opposite way, which I'm sure Eagles fans felt against the Giants a couple of weeks ago. But I hear what you're saying too, but at the same time, I don't see who's going to be stopping anybody from this Falcons offense on that Dolphins team. Like, they don't have bad options in their secondary, but are they? I would not be surprised if this is a blowout, because this team is just done with Mike McDaniel, or as I've been calling him, McDonald, to call him Ronald McDonald, because I think that guy's an absolute clown. But
you don't like the 70s sunglasses and the whole look he's got going on?
He should just go vape on another team. Go be I don't know, go be the Giants' next head coach after they get rid of Dable or something. I don't know, but regardless, though, I think I have to agree with you, though. Fannin's a more exciting option than Pitts, because even if Pitts is still
Joe
having an
Hammy's
easy
comment
time,
is the deal for me. Like, you're going to have Bijan and Algier. This is a Miami defense that they cannot stop the run. 5.6 yards per carry, 160 yards per game. We have proven one thing this season and even last year, that when we can just run the ball on a team, we're not just going to be throwing it to throw it. And Miami, the one thing they can actually do is they can get pressure. So I expect that the Falcons get a lead like what you're talking about. They're going to be running a lot, obviously, in that scenario. And I think even if it's a competitive game, they're going to be running the ball quite a great deal. And again, not only Bijan, but Algier, we've seen he's the closer, quote unquote. Like when we get these leads kind of riding out, they just sort of pound the tank.
So on that note, if Bijan has himself one hell of a day, like if he goes for like 19 for 170 again or 22 for 143, that usually means it should be a great game for Tyler Algier as well. Is he another flex play this week?
I think if he's not a flex play this week with Bijan playing, I don't know what week he would be. Because again, Miami has been the worst run defense in the NFL. And I mean, it is consistent here. You look, Ramondre Stevenson, okay, over 100 yards, a touchdown. Kamani Vidal. Now, I know he's looked good since then, but remember, the dude was cut by the team, brought back, immediately runs for 100 yards. Last week, Jukins, with the 3 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor ran all over him. Like, every running back except Breece Hall has scored 20-plus points versus this Miami defense, and Breece Hall scored 16.4. So I expect Bijan to have a good day. And to your point, if we get up and have that kind of lead, Algier could have a really good game. He scored 10 points in the Buffalo game, and that game was competitive. So
yeah, he fell in the end zone. He wasn't necessarily efficient, but it didn't matter because all you cared about was getting flex-worthy points.
Yep.
So before we keep going down that rabbit hole as well, wanted to give a quick shout out, Doug Royer, which is Casey's father.
Yes.
Good to see you again, sir. I know we haven't spoken before, but I appreciate the kind words, my man.
Your daughter's the best, Doug.
Yeah,
like, the absolute best.
Love Casey. TroneForce8199 says, being proactive in picking up a tight end for next week. Who's the better play in PPR format? Jonnu Smith versus the Colts or Noah Fant versus the Bears? I think that's, the Bengals are playing the Jets next week, so it's not next week. I forgot. The Bears are playing the Bengals next week. So, I think that's going to be a tougher one because I'm not so sure I'd like to play either one because Noah Fant, I think, technically has the easier matchup, but they just don't get him the ball enough. And I think this is just going to be the Jamar Chase and T. Higgins show from Joe Flacco moving forward. What do you think about this, Keith? Maybe you can help me.
I always am going to go with Jonnu Smith. He has actually been really productive again. It hasn't been the numbers that we saw last year, but he is still a focal point in that offense. I believe he's already scored 3 times this season. And by the way, the Colts are awful versus tight ends and wide receivers. They're 29th right now versus tight ends. At least I know that's what the ranking is on DraftKings. So I like Jonnu Smith. The only thing that might change that is if we see Fant get a lot more involved this week with Flacco. But the first 2 weeks has kind of shown us that Flacco knows what he was brought there to do. Get the damn ball to Higgins and Chase, and everything else will work itself out. And so until that happens, I can't feel confident in any other, kind of pass catcher. Maybe Chase Brown again gets a bump. He's looked a lot better since Flacco's gotten there. But outside of that, I think it's Higgins, Chase, and, Brown, and then everybody else is just kind of like,
Yeah, you actually brought up a great point with the Colts defense giving up a lot of fantasy points to tight ends through week 7. I didn't even know that until I looked it up just now. According to Fantasy Pros in the half PPR scoring format, I
do
fourth.
A rankings article every week. It just helps, doing that rankings every week. We're in a main slate DFS preview, and I always include the defensive rankings for both teams. And so seeing it is funny though, even watching this, covering it every once in a while, you look at a team's ranking, you're like, wait a minute. And then you go and look, it's like, oh my God, they've given up like 7 touchdowns in the last 5 games to tight ends or something. It's like, maybe I should be considering a tight end right now from this team.
Absolutely. And you can find Keith's articles posted on opposite side of me, OptimusFantasy.com, up there in the top right corner. Be sure to check out our website after the show as well. But I think I have to agree with you, Keith, about what Trone Force was asking here. I think Jonnu Smith is definitely the move here next week against the Colts defense that has given up a average of 13.2 fantasy points per game in half PPR leagues. And in full PPR, I'm sure that's a better number. But regardless, yeah, I think that's definitely the move. And it's funny, like Jonnu Smith was a sleeper tight end of the week last week for me when they were playing the Bengals. And then go figure, Pat Freiermuth ended up outscoring him too. And I'm just sitting here like, well, geez, maybe I should have picked Freiermuth.
All 3 tight ends caught a touchdown. Like, I want to know how many times that's happened where 3 tight ends on a team all caught a touchdown. And I actually saw where somebody called that because the Bengals have been just getting absolutely destroyed by tight ends. That's why I hope Mason Taylor suits up this week. If so, he's a great sleeper if you need a tight end. I don't care if it's Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor. It could be me or Evan throwing balls because right now the Bengals, again, 7 touchdowns allowed to tight ends in just their last 5 games.
I am a left-handed thrower, which could throw off some defenses. You never know. I mean, And actually, I wanted to ask you too about that Jets matchup with the Bengals. So, yeah, Mason Taylor would be an amazing sleeper play, but with how awful that offense has been, and Woody Johnson just crapping all over Fields in the media, which offended me as a I guess an accused Fields apologist, which
I'm a Fields apologist. It's okay. You're in
okay,
safe
cool.
space.
So you get what I mean. So at that point, regardless of who's throwing him the football, where do you see Mason Taylor ranked this week? I mean, is he a tight end? Is he at least a tight end 2 this week?
Oh, I think for sure. Again, make sure he's playing. But if he does, the Bengals they're awful versus like the Bengals and the Packers are right now the two teams that any tight end playing them, you should. I mean, again, Green Bay's even worse. Green Bay, this is one reason I was all over Trey McBride last week in cash gains for DFS is Green Bay has now they were allowing 7.8 receptions per game to tight ends heading into that matchup. Obviously, that number went up. Now they're allowing over 8. And then again, the Bengals give up a touchdown, it seems like every day. They've already had 2 games this season where multiple tight ends have caught touchdowns against them, which again, it's rare to ever see 2 tight ends, or 2 touchdowns to tight ends, much less they had 3 in the Pittsburgh game. And I believe it was the Colts or somebody a couple of weeks ago had 2 different tight ends score against them.
I could just imagine Arthur Smith in the locker room pre-game being like, all right, you, your wide receivers now. Get on it.
Oh, yeah. It was, again, I lived that train. It was not too much fun.
Yes. And Joe Hammy also pointed out that Jonnu only has 2 touchdowns this season, which happened last week against the Bengals, and then another one in week 1. I forgot the Steelers. It was the New York Jets. And as we were just talking about, like that Jets defense, I really thought Aaron Glenn was going to be making a huge difference for that defense, but I have not seen it. Like, I don't really know what else is going on. Is Aaron Glenn really that bad of a head coach, or is this just Woody Johnson just being bad at managing a team?
I mean, I think it's, I don't think Aaron Glenn's necessarily like this bad coach. It's unfair to, call him out for that this early, especially when they are changing their defense like big time. We actually saw it both from the Jets and Cowboys last week where the Cowboys played more man than they have in any game this season because, they were playing the highest zone rate in the NFL by a large margin. The, Jets kind of the inverse where they run a ton of man and you saw a little bit more zone the last couple of weeks. And we'll just see how it works out. But I mean, I'm with you that like I assume the Jets were going to be a good defense again with Glenn coming in. And it looks like what we saw last year is the way it is. Robert Saleh, for all the crap we give him and rightfully earned, look at what he's doing with the Niners. They've already lost Fred Warner and Bosa, arguably their best 2 defenders, and their defense still looks stout. There's these guys that not good head coaches, but they're great, obviously coordinators, play callers, and the Jets they were elite defense up until the time they let Robert Saleh go. And then the second half of last season was really bad, and it's obviously going really bad this year as well.
And Robert Saleh gets to help that 49ers defense just come back and just dominate. Like, how many defensive players are injured on the 49ers? They're now without Fred Warner, and they still crushed it last week. That just goes to show how elite of a defensive coordinator Saleh is, despite just how he just wasn't cut out to be a head coach, at least not on the Jets. Maybe he'd be a better head coach somewhere else, right?
Absolutely. And again, the Niners, 14 of their 22 projected starters have already missed at least 1 game this season, and they are 5-2. Like, I am shocked Shanahan is not being mentioned for coach of the year. Like, if that's not coach of the year worthy, their front office, again, deserves a lot of credit for not only going out and get Robert Saleh. We need a defensive coordinator in Atlanta, and he's doing great as well. But I'm just saying, like, we could have got Saleh. We didn't. More importantly, them signing Mac Jones, 2 years, $7 million. Nobody wanted him. And without Mac Jones, no way this team's 5-2. Brock Purdy's out again this week. And the reason I think they're being patient with Purdy is because they know how well Mac Jones is playing. And if CMC, like, that's what scared me about the Niners, right? Like, CMC's already having this year. This offense is going to get better because we saw Kittle come back last week. No surprise. It's the best run game CMC's had all season because Kittle's like adding an extra offensive lineman. He's obviously great in the pass game as well. Eventually, they're going to get Brandon Ayuk back, Jennings and Purcell. Like, this offense actually could be ascending in a few weeks. And then the Niners are going to be a scary team in the NFC just in general.
even if Ayuk doesn't come back, this is still a really good offense. And I think I have to eat crow and admit I was wrong about Kyle Shanahan. I didn't think he was a very good head coach with some of the weird decisions he's made in the past. But
in game,
I don't think
it's a fair question. Like, he makes some really, again, 28-3. I know all about his in-game coaching decisions, but like as an actual head coach, game plans, etc. I just have to give credit where credit is due. He's one of the best there is.
Yeah, and even Alf pointed out that all the reports indicated that Mac Jones was Kyle Shanahan's guy in that class, not Trey Lance, but ownership wanted Lance instead. Man, if you're a Jaguars fan, you're longing for Mac Jones to come back with how awful Trevor Lawrence has been. And even then, maybe awful's too strong of a word. Trevor Lawrence has been a below-average quarterback. Bad. He's trying, but I just don't know if he has it to be a long-term starter. I mean, maybe he just needs to change his scenery, too.
I was somebody who thought he was a can't miss prospect. And like, not saying, nobody bats anywhere near 60-70% on this stuff, but like with quarterbacks, typically I know the ones that are going to be good. And I thought he had everything, right? Like, he's accurate. He's got a strong arm. He's mobile. So I assumed he was going to come in and be great. The one thing I always forget is it does matter where you go. If Tom Brady was drafted by the Atlanta Falcons, nobody would fucking know who Tom Brady is, okay? Because he would suck. Like, that's just the way the world works. And unfortunately for T-Law going to the Jags, you're going to have a bad time. If you're a Browns quarterback, aka Baker Mayfield, you have to get away to do well. Sam Darnold was a mess with the Jets. Look at him now, thriving with his second team, since leaving New York. Like, there's just some franchises you get saddled with. Losing brings on losing. Bad decisions bring on bad decisions. And, I think so much of the situation, I'm learning that as I get older, has everything to do with whether or not these QBs thrive or not.
Sam Darnold has been a great comeback story, too. I think just having worked with Kevin O'Connell made all the difference and saved his career, because sometimes you just need that one coach that can unlock your true potential, which he did not have on the Jets. He did not have on the Panthers. And he didn't even have that on the 49ers with the limited action he saw. So who knows if he'd have done the same thing on Kyle Shanahan's system if they gave him a longer leash.
I think that it's very likely he would have. And again, this is why... And I'm glad to see it. More teams are being a little patient with these QBs. We saw it with Penix last year. Even Dart. Like, I understand how infuriating it must have been for Giants fans the first few games to watch Russell Wilson, outside of the Cowboys game, of course. But, like, you can see now they were doing what they needed to do. They wanted to make sure he's ready, because if they have a really bad time or a bad experience where they're getting killed, right, which is the big thing. Like, I think that internal clock then changes. And once that's gone, it's just a mess. I mean, Deshaun Watson was a supernova. And then I think from him being away from the game for a year and a half, 2 years, and obviously I'm sure the off the field stuff had a, part two too. He looks like a completely different quarterback. Like, he doesn't look like the guy that he was in Houston, which was one of the best quarterbacks in football. He was one of the best quarterbacks in college. Like, I'll never forget his performance versus Alabama in the national championship. Like, it was incredible.
Ugh. God, yeah, and you see the polar opposite with a guy like a Justin Fields, as I'm going to bring the conversation back to that. He regressed mightily hard in just a horrible joke of a system that the Jets have going right now. And just when you saw some, like, true shines of potential on the Bears and on the Steelers and then the Jets, he had maybe 2 good games so far. He actually played really well against the Cowboys, and now he's practically worthless in this offense where the whole team isn't even playing well. And now we're acting like we're back on the field sucks narrative, and I hate it because he's better than this. Is he elite? No way. Yep. But he's at least good.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree. The Bears, like, you see what they did with Caleb? That's what they should have done with Fields. Like, they should have beefed up the offensive line, invested in real studs at wide receiver, signed a competent running back in DeAndre, like, all these things. There's a reason that Caleb Williams has been as good as, he's been. And he's another guy that, like, I don't understand why people are so hard on Caleb. Like, the biggest thing on Caleb coming out of college was he turns it over too much. He takes too many risks. He never, ever throws interceptions, which I think that's a big deal. And that Bears offense is just, like, give him time. Like, I've actually been impressed with what I've seen from him. And I think as the game continues to slow down from him, he can make any throw. Like, we've seen already some of the, the dimes that he's had, and obviously all the ones he made in college. Like, I just think we're too hard on these quarterbacks. And, we give them, it's just a position. I get it. But it's like when things go wrong, it's always the quarterback's fault. Forget everything else. People were blaming Dak Prescott, right? Like a year or 2 years ago in Dallas. Like, you think Dak Prescott's the problem? We had this in Atlanta with Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan was not the problem ever. We ranked 20th or worst in defense for 14 of his 15 years in Atlanta. Like, and no surprise, the 1 year we ranked in the top 20, we went to the Super Bowl. So it's not always the QBs. You have to look at other factors.
That's why I hate that QB record stat that gets put on quarterbacks. It's such a misleading thing. A lot of people who might not watch as much football think that the quarterback is the problem when they see just a bad quarterback record. Sometimes I wonder if Dan Marino went through the same criticism when he had those Dolphins teams that just had awful defenses, wondering if he was getting the blame in the 80s and 90s. Now that we have the internet, it's easier to see that type of criticism. But yeah, Caleb Williams, same thing. Like in the first 2 games of the season when the team was struggling, he took 6 sacks. In the last 3, 4, 6, and 7, the last 4 games, he's taken a total of 5 sacks across 4 games. Wow. He's gotten so much better with not taking bad sacks, taking better care of the football. He's thrown 3 interceptions this year, where all of last year he's thrown 6. He's really, really good at taking care of the football. So yeah, it's always the same thing when he has to be a part of a system that's finally developing with proper coaching that we've just never seen in Chicago. Not since Lovie Smith, at least. Yep. And even then, like our offense was really shaky with Lovie Smith because he's a defensive specialist. We went through like a revolving door of offensive coordinators between Mike Martz and Mike Tice and all these other guys that just couldn't unlock Jay Cutler's potential either. But yeah,
Matthew Stafford is another example of that, where in Detroit, and I said this forever being a Dogs fan because I saw Stafford. I know he's that dude, but they were another team, that bad team. They were always changing offensive coordinators. Like, they had some good seasons with them, but overall it was a losing record, pretty considerably. He goes to the Rams and look at him. Like, he's freaking feasting. Like, it's just, I don't know why it's hard. So, not to poke the bear, and pun intended, how upset are you about not taking Tyler Warren?
I'm not upset one bit. I was actually upset when we drafted Colston Loveland at 10 because I didn't feel like we needed to draft a tight end because we already have Cole Kmet. And once they drafted Colston Loveland, that gave me the indication that they're probably going to be trading Cole Kmet because he's got a great set of hands. Why would you draft a tight end when you've already got a great one in Cole Kmet who can catch pretty much anything out there? But this is the contract year for Cole Kmet. I don't know if the Bears are going to bring him back if he's a desired piece in the Ben Johnson system. They want to go with Colston Loveland, but maybe they just want to roll with 2 tight ends. I don't know what the plan is entirely, but we'll just have to wait and see what they do with Kmet.
Because I just, again, I don't know. I haven't really watched a lot of either tight end, obviously in college and then in the NFL. I've just seen how good Warren's been, but it helps when you're in Shane Steichen's system. Like, I think he's another one of those guys that this year has kind of submitted. Dude's unreal. I mean, 1 game's a move the ball Gardner Minshew. Like, now look what he's doing with Daniel Jones. Like, it's a huge deal when you get with the right, again, system players. But I'm excited to see, because I know both guys are really talented. Obviously, I'm a huge Bowers guy from being from Georgia, and tight ends are becoming a position where they can really feast. We're seeing them with Gaston right now with the Chargers. They're just so difficult for teams to match up with because they're too big for corners, and most of the time they're too fast for a lot of safeties and linebackers.
That is very true. J Dabs on Twitch says,
like the way you said that.
In a 12-team dynasty PPR top contender, would you rather have JCM, Bill, and a 26 draft pick, mid to late first, for James Cook, or add another 2026 first early and Olave for Bijan? So this is a which side would you rather have question. I'm going to let you go first with this one, Keith, because I need some time to think about this.
Okay. This is going to sound weird coming from the Falcons guy. I think I would rather have Cook. And I know people are going, Keith, what are you doing? But running backs are so fickle, man. And if you can get Cook and you're like, because if you're saying early, I'm assuming you're meaning like a top 5 pick, right? And with the quarterbacks always having so much value and the receivers, you're normally going to get either the first or second back off the board, at least from the dynasty leagues I've been in. I'll admit I've not been in a ton of them, but I worry about it. I do. I worry about all running backs in this situation. Like Bijan's in his third year. He's a supernova, but James Cook is next to Josh Allen. Like, do you understand the benefit of being with Josh Allen? The Bills have understood we're not going to use Allen the way we used to. When we get to the goal line, we're just going to let him bulldoze in. They know they need a healthy Josh Allen. That is why James Cook is now one of the best backs in fantasy. And so you're telling me that I'm getting to keep Olave, who, again, I think in PPR leagues, like, that's a cheat code, and it's only going to get better for him. You're going to have games like you did last week. I would rather have, the extra draft capital, take Cook, than give up so much for Bijan, and then potentially you just don't ever know what's going to happen. Like, Falcon's going to Falcon.
Falcons are indeed going to Falcon. Yeah, I think assuming this is a question where it's not, one of these is not your side, J-Dabs, I think I would rather try and trade for Cook as well, because he's got a lot more value in a Bills system that loves running all over the field and running all over defenses. I had skepticism for James Cook when he was a rookie, and I'm glad that he proved me wrong, because I made sure to grab him in as many leagues as I could this year, because he's lights out. He's RB10 in PPR leagues right now. Sure, he had a couple of down weeks because he didn't fall in the end zone, but that's pretty much true for every running back. You have to hope they fall in the end zone for almost all of them to be reliable, unless you got a guy like an Austin Eckler or Alvin Kamara catching passes, but that's PPR.
Their schedule is super easy rest of the season as well. And just look at his performance in games the Bills are up. I know one of the games he didn't go bananas was the Falcons. That was because they were down and they were forced to throw a ton. You actually look, he still, I think, gained over 5 yards per carry in that game. So it wasn't, Cook. And again, in these games that they get up, he has really took over the backfield. And I do ever since they've adapted the Allen, he's not like Hurts, right? You have to worry about, even when somebody like Saquon Barkley, when they get to the red zone, Hurts is going to potentially vulture the touchdown. Allen has really got to where they go away from that unless it's a pass play where then he takes off.
Right, yeah. It's because it is tempting to trade for both Olave and Bijan, because they're both young and they still have a lot of great years ahead of them. I know that's weird to say as a New Orleans Saint, but if the Saints can actually find a better quarterback than Spencer Rattler, improve their offensive line, and it's looking like they're probably going to have to find a replacement for Kamara at some point, he could return to a top 10 status. I mean, if all things go well for Olave. If anybody can believe it, Chris Olave is sitting at wide receiver 11 in PPR leagues right now. I don't think a lot of people realize that, because Olave was going late in a lot of drafts this year. Saints were practically free.
He's a PPR cheat code. And I mean, I'm glad to see it's changing as somebody took Kamara. I thought Kamara was really undervalued as well, because again, I think the Saints, they're going to be down a lot, throwing a lot, and garbage time points count just as much as regular time points. Early in the season, Kamara was getting no value. I think his target share was 8%. It was 10% lower than any time in his career as the New Orleans Saints starter. But I think that's the last 4 games, 19 targets. He's had at least 3 receptions in each of those games. So it looks like he's getting involved in the passing game, to me, making both of those guys just insta starts every week. Olave is, I think, one of the top 15 receivers, because you're guaranteed you're going to get 10 points. I know it's not great, and we all want 30, but 10 to 12 points is way better than 4, which a lot of guys have.
There's no arguing against that. You're going to take that any day of the week in this game, man. So, what's funny? Speaking of Alvin Kamara, I took a lot of flack on Reddit when we did our August 30th AMA, where somebody asked, are you higher on Bucky or Chase Brown? And I said, I'm not high on either. I would rather draft Alvin Kamara among a few other running backs over Chase Brown and Bucky Irving. And now, Bucky Irving, we didn't predict to get injured. I mean, I treated him as an RB2 anyway, but Chase Brown was being viewed as this top 5 running back, and now with how bad the Bengals have been, and Chase Brown's been pretty bad too, he's sitting at RB30 in PPR leagues right now. Alvin Kamara is RB22. So there was somebody who replied,
Kendra Miller's now out for the season, which is huge. Kamara's going to be on the field all the time.
Yeah, no more Kendre Miller. They're going to have to figure out how to use Devin Neal better, too, because that's hopefully going to mean more volume if you have Kamara in leagues. But, it's funny because I got a reply that said something like, you'd rather have old washed-up Kamara than Chase Brown? Come on, man. Well, I don't want a victory lap yet because we're only through week 7, but It's looking like this is rest of season.
No, I'm with, and the Saints are pretty good running the ball. My one concern, and we're going to be going through this now again with Kendre Miller done for the year. Be prepared. Just be prepared for those Taysom Hill spike weeks because he's going to get more carries. Like it happens every time they're light at the running back position. He gets those, like goal line, rush attempts. He already scored a touchdown, I think, from like the 1 or 2 in week 2. And then last week he got a couple of targets. He's actually somebody this week I kind of like as a sneaky play on DraftKings. I think he's like 29 or 2,800.
Wow. Yeah. So, because I was going to say, if you're on DraftKings and you're building lineups, you don't really care about the tight end position if you're a degenerate. At least that's what I learned when I used to be on a DFS show on YouTube a couple of years ago. Taysom Hill is another example of one of those like cheap tight ends that you stick in there hoping for the best just because you got to risk it for the biscuit so you can go less chalk. But Taysom Hill, I don't think would be one of those guys I would stick in a lineup because he's so boom bust. Do you have any lineups this week? Well, I guess you shouldn't answer that because you don't want to give away the secret. But are you recommending Taysom Hill as a sneaky play still?
Yeah, in GPP formats, I think he's great. Because look, this week it's all about you want 2 of the 3 alpha running backs, right? You got CMC, you got Jonathan Taylor, you got Bijan. They're all 8,800 and above. So in order to do that, you obviously have to spend down other places. One of my favorite ways to do it is stacking Joe Flacco and Higgins. Again, Chase is going to probably have Sauce Gardner on him a good bit. Higgins feast versus man, which the Jets run a lot. And I need some cheap options. So guys like Dalton Schultz, he's 3,600. Mason Taylor, he's again 3,400. Taysom Hill, I think he's like 2,900. And then what's his name? Dyke from the Titans, I think, is a really interesting play this week with Tyler Lockett out, and you have Ridley out this week. So he's 3,400. You're going to have to do that by like adding those guys. I have a lineup with I have Henry, Jonathan Taylor, and Bijan.
Sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. Joe Hammy pointed out that it's Chimeri DK, which we did talk about on the waiver wire show as well, whether or not he's a good ad.
Joe, I am the most country bumpkin you will ever meet. Pronouncing names incorrect is kind of just my thing. So that's amazing. I can't wait to tell my boy Joe Matz, who does the DFS show with me. He thinks it's hilarious how many names I butcher. So DK, like it.
Yeah. So before we get to this next question, Keith, I think you might barf at this one because with one of my free lineups on DraftKings, I built a Tua Waddle stack.
I don't necessarily hate it. It's just the Falcons have been like shockingly good versus the pass this year. I don't know how this is happening. It doesn't seem like real life, but we haven't even allowed 200 passing yards yet to an opponent. Now maybe some of that is game script, maybe some of that is who we've played, but it is nuts to be this far into the season not allowed it. But having said that, in GPP contests, like you have to just take your chances. Like that's the difference. Like I love cash games because ownership and all that stuff doesn't really matter. You're just trying to build a lineup that's going to score the most points and make sure that you're cashing, as much as possible. GPP, you're swinging for the fences all the time in these multi-entry contests. There is no wrong answer. There is no bad, right? Like, and I guarantee you that will be a stack that'll be very under-owned for this week.
Yeah, I'm going to have to pick your brain more about this later because I'm always doing the guaranteed contest rather than cash, but you got to give credit to your Falcons secondary too. They are fantastic this year. Jesse Bates is probably my favorite safety in the league. As much as I love my Jaquan Brisker, I mean Jesse Bates is still on a great elite level. Titan Style asks, quarterback Dak, wide receivers Jamar Chase, Ladd McConkey, Jamison Williams, Travis Hunter, Calvin Ridley, Tez Johnson. Running backs, Quan, which one is Quan? I'm sorry.
I actually do not know. Oh, maybe Jenkins. or Judkins, I mean.
Yeah, it might be, maybe, Quinshawn, I'm not sure. Kemani Vidal, Alvin Kamara, Ramondre Stevenson, Travis Etienne, and Woody Marks. Who would you offer for Kyren and or Bucky? So this is another, probably Saquon, now that I think harder about it. Sorry, folks, it's Friday.
There you go.
So this is one of those questions that I always say it depends, because you really got to talk to the shareholders who are holding Kyren and Bucky if they're interested in anybody from your team and what offer you could get done that's not going to hurt you later in the season. So I would still, I think, rather have Kyren Williams over Bucky Irving for right now, just because, Bucky's hurt, but when he comes back, he should still offer a lot of the same value. But it seems like Kyren is a guy that's just, at this point, indestructible, despite getting hurt in his rookie year. Am I crazy for picking Kyren over Bucky?
No. I think Tampa has shown they're having issues just kind of running the ball in general this year. Yards before contact, big deal. Liam Cohen, Ben Johnson, two prime examples of these play callers matter, because Chicago and Jacksonville near the top of the league for the most yards before contact. The places that they came from are now near the bottom. Like in Tampa Bay was second last year in yards before contact. So that stuff matters. If I'm being 100% honest with Titan style here, I would be looking to upgrade wide receiver, not running back. Like, I really like your running backs. I hope Saquon Barkley is going to get it going. Stevenson has all but locked down the Patriots backfield. Like this Travion Henderson thing, it's dead for this season. Like, for whatever reason, he's not getting the touches. Vidal has earned, in my opinion, a role in that offense, even if we do get Hampton back in like 4 weeks, like they're calling for. And then Woody Marks is somebody that, again, should be ascending. We just talked about how we like Alvin Kamara the rest of the season. Your receivers, I feel like, outside of Chase and Ladd, and obviously Tez McMillan's a really good play week in and week out, not a lot of consistency from J-Mo, Hunter, and Ridley. So I would be, if I'm doing anything, trying to upgrade my wide receivers, not my running backs, but I really like your squad just in general.
I have to completely agree with Keith here. If I would say, I wouldn't be panicking about your running backs. They look marvelous with who you have at depth, because Ramondre's, I think he's keeping that job rest of season. They got to give Travion more time to develop in the NFL. Woody Marks could even pop off this week too, if everything goes well. But yeah, if anything, like if Tez Johnson is at the end of your bench, yeah, that's a sign that you should probably be trading for one more wide receiver. Travis Etienne, I don't know if you're going to get much more value out of dumping him, but whatever you choose to do, Titan style, we wish you all the best. If you get anything done, let us know how it goes too.
The guy's 2-5 and is asking for offers. So, in that case, I'd be okay. Maybe you could offer Etienne and Vidal, because again, we're assuming Hampton's going to come back. Etienne, it's been nice, but the Jags offense is starting to look worse as the season goes on. Those would probably be the two that I'd definitely be. Well, Kamara's another guy that if you're getting back Bucky or Kyren, I'm happy to throw him in there. But and sometimes it does help you. I'm assuming most weeks you have a hard time just picking what running back to play, right? Because you have so many good options. And unfortunately, the guy that should be your sure thing, Barkley, has not been a sure thing most weeks. So totally understand that. I'm just saying I do like your backs, but when somebody's just flat out asking, that they want to get rid of, one or two guys, don't ever be afraid to, Ladd is somebody that I think you're going to see exactly what we saw last year, and it's ramping up. Started really slow, and then that has just been crescendoing as the last few weeks. And I still think he is their best wide receiver. You're a Chargers team that now I believe is throwing it the most of any team in the NFL. So I would not be letting go of Ladd. I'm not, though. If you're done with Barkley, again, the yards before contact, the explosive runs, we're 7 weeks into the season. None of that's really happening. I'm actually okay trading Barkley straight up for Kyren. I wouldn't do it for Bucky, just because it was my one concern about him this year is we haven't seen him have a huge workload and survive an NFL season. Last season, he got really banged up. As great as he was those last 7 weeks, you remember, it seemed like every week he either had a foot or, a shoulder or something. So if I'm getting rid of Barkley, I want Kyren, who, to your point, is just knock on wood because we're saying it, but he seems to be, a guy that stays healthy, and that offense is going to be good the rest of the way. Like I love that Rams offense. They'll get Puka back. Stafford's playing incredible, and they've been using them both in the pass game and the run game.
Yeah, so Titan style, I know this is one of those situations where it's like, oh man, it's a shame this guy's not offering wide receivers. If you can sell high on Vidal as well as maybe even ETN, if you can somehow get back both of those guys somehow, like that would be a massive for your running back room. But it's not something you really need to do. You're in good shape at 4-3. Keep up the good work, man. So let's get to another question here by Ronaldo Rincon 9201. Josh Downs, Jalen Noel, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims, Josh Reynolds. I need a streamer. Thank you so much. I think Troy Franklin's the move here.
That would probably be, what do you have, 10 targets, I think, last week? I know it wasn't.
He only caught like 3 of them.
Yeah, it wasn't great. And I will say that if you were ever going to play, Mims, again, this is the week to do it, playing the Cowboys. I know Franklin's playing as well. We just see, though, Mims has the ability he can have one catch for 80 yards and a touchdown and outscore a ton of different people. I will say that both Mims and Franklin, just to, not throw cold water on it, because they would be the guys that I'm picking through too, but they are better against man than zone. Again, the Cowboys run zone at the highest rate in the NFL. That is a great thing for Courtland Sutton, who is averaging over 3 points per target this year versus zone. Maybe not great for Franklin and Mims, but I always go with volume. So I agree with you that I think Franklin is the play.
Yeah, Jalen Noel might be tempting because there's no Nico Collins and there's no Christian Kirk, but I don't even think Jalen Noel is going to get the ball in his hands in time by the time CJ Stroud either has to run for his life or take a sack, because that Houston offense is not looking good whatsoever. I feel sorry for CJ Stroud because I know he's a better quarterback than what this offense is giving him, but being that the Broncos have more... I don't know. I don't want to say their offensive line is that much better than what Houston has, and Bo Nix is not playing that much better than CJ Stroud, but I think you got to take your chances on Troy Franklin, who's proven that he can be an important piece in this offense. Even if he only gets a few targets, you hope he falls in the end zone. So
Cowboys give up 30 points per game, so it makes it very likely somebody will fall. So
yeah, and even if it happens to be Marvin Mims, he's too boom bust to depend on. But Ronaldo, if whichever of those Broncos wide receivers you go with, we wish you all the best with that. So
again, if Decay's out there, no, Lockett, no Ridley, I like him a lot this week as somebody who should get volume. You expect Tennessee to be down. Indy scored a gazillion points against them the first time. Indy gives up a ton of points to wide receiver. They're either 31st or 32nd on DraftKings against them. I like that as well if he's out there.
Totally. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start to wrap things up here for the Friday Vibes show. One last thing we want to tell you about before we go here, as I take down Ronaldo's comment. We have incredible tools on OptimusFantasy.com. Unlock Sunday with some incredible... we now finally have some betting tools that are finally coming in. DFS lineup optimizers coming in. We've got over 19 years worth of player data in our tools, advanced football analytics and algorithm powered projections. We got a lot of great stuff coming on the way that I can't get into with the details, but you definitely want to subscribe to Optimus Fantasy Tools if you haven't already. You can also get 25% off your first 4 months using promo code OptimusFall. Check it out today, tools.optimusfantasy.com. While you're over there, too, on regular optimusfantasy.com, be sure to check out Keith Flemming's DFS articles on there as well. We also have the Friday Vibes article that should be published coming up soon. Be sure to check that out as well as any last-minute rankings that you've got here. We have the ranking section on OptimusFantasy.com you can check out. If we didn't get to your question this evening, we also have the Discord server. The link is in the description below, mostly below Keith rather than me. So, signing off for, I've been Evan Sather. This has been Keith Flemming. We will see you next week. Sayonara. We'll see you again soon. Good luck this weekend.